Welcome to Flyover Conservative Podcast with David and Stacy Whited, where we break down current events and examine culture through the lens of conservative Christian values.
You know, it feels often like we're still kind of new, in the podcast space.
Yes.
It seems like, hey, just kind of a new thing. But now there's starting to be years accumulated, and we've accumulated a lot of great relationships in that process. Somebody that was a weekly guest for almost one of those years, completely become an incredible friend of ours. Somebody we respect and reach out to regularly and get advice. Hey, what's the real deal with this? Because she knows the real deal on everything. She's been a host at Newsmax, Fox News, producer. Has her own show. She's worked with Alex Jones, directly. So kind of been behind the scenes, both sides of the curtains, both sides of the camera in a lot of big places, Major League Baseball, so many others. Recently authored a book about the fashion of the First Lady, which the First Lady position has missed fashion for quite some time. And I think
Jill Biden.
You think of Joe Biden, you think of
Michelle Obama.
Yeah, Big Mike. might as well go there. But fashion is back in the White House, and class is back at the White House. If I can hang on to this book. She also has her own show, kind of in there now. There are hundreds of thousands of followers on X, and kind of knows the behind the scene things on just about everybody and everything. The one, the only Brianna Murillo.
It feels great to be back, my friends. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We missed you and so excited to have you back today.
Yeah, I miss the both of you. It's been a crazy couple of months, but it's good to buckle down and kind of sift through all of this right now.
You've been at Reawaken events with us. You've been here at these. You're been in Austin working with Alex, for quite a while. You've kind of have been there on every different front that anybody watching would be like, hey, I wonder, what's going on there. You kind of know that on everything. Now, the influence you've had on our life is somewhat on the news and political, and you've not really, a lot about fashion, but it hasn't had an impact on me yet. I'm working on it. But when it comes to cooking, one of our favorite things when we go out to eat, was to get prime rib. It kind of seemed a little beyond and exotic for what you could make at home. It's like, how do they even do that? We love it and order it. We go out and then we, you do a lot of cooking and then also post that on your X, and it's like, oh, I didn't know you could make that at home. And prime rib has now become a staple in the Whited home, thanks to our son Colton and his wife getting influenced by you. Now, I would say he's mastered the prime rib.
It's unbelievable. So this was pretty cool. So yesterday we had prime rib. 3 years ago, I think we saw on X that you were doing prime rib, and Colton was like, okay, I'm going to start doing prime rib. He did prime rib that Easter. And then every year since, he's done it, and it is absolutely phenomenal. But we went on your X and noticed you took it to the next level. You actually started putting garlic inside of your prime rib.
Garlic stuffed.
Next level. Amazing.
We got to keep Colton on his toes a little bit and keep him stepping up his prime rib game. But I have to say, Colton, 10 out of 10 on the appearance of that prime rib. Do we know? Was it medium rare or was it medium? I hope it wasn't well done. How did it come out?
It was medium rare.
It was a perfect medium rare all the way through.
Absolutely.
You make me proud.
With the bitey horseradish, creamy sauce, the au jus is amazing.
Good. I think it was 14 pounds.
That was a 14-pound, 5-bone prime rib right there.
Oh, it was so good.
That is a monster.
It was.
That is a monster.
It's pretty special. We ate until we couldn't. Which is kind of the goal. It's completely stuffed, and it's everything I remembered. So you've had this great impact on our life. We got to thank you, for that. Everywhere you are, you leave things better, and you have this unique niche in this space of you see the darkest things out there. You investigate, you turn stuff over, but you kind of remain clean, in it. You're still positive. You're still optimistic about life, and you kind of have this interesting way of not getting jaded while still being aware. They say ignorance is bliss, and you have kind of maintained your bliss while increasing your awareness. It's a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously the news cycle, especially lately, has been kind of down for a lot of people. Those my colleagues, I hear a lot of negative. Everyone's feeling kind of negative and down these days. So I'm trying to cover the most positive angles as possible and try to get to highlight some wins here and there. So that's always the goal, is to kind of dig in for the truth a bit, obviously, make sure that you're being as transparent as possible, but also giving people something to be thankful for and be optimistic about as we head into, what is this year? This is year 2 now. So the Trump administration. So it's been interesting. There's been a lot of twists and turns along the way that I was not expecting.
Well, you got almost 400,000
I
followers
was
on
going
your
to say
X.
that.
It's
It's
unbelievable.
It's interesting because I think when we started first following you, talking, you were right at a little less than 100,000 or right at 100,000 followers on X, and now to almost be at 400,000 followers on X. Unbelievable what you're doing there. And then also talk about your website, independentnewsroom.com, and how people can subscribe to that, because I think it's really important that people, like David said, getting the information, but also still staying positive.
And for value, you can't beat it because you get deep dives on a lot of interesting topics, but it's also free.
Yeah, and that's the best part, right? So you get, and I'm not going to spam you to death, because I know a lot of people who make Substacks and stuff put up way too much. It's maybe at most 2 emails you get a month from me, but it's my exclusive stories, the best of the best stories that I'm covering, and I always put it out on this website first. So if you want kind of like a head start on the exclusives that I'm working on, it's independentnewsroom.com. You can hit the subscribe button, and it's free. I do free content for everyone because it's information I want everyone to get a hold of. And I'm still working on a lot of other things. I'm doing some investigative work on the CCP and their ties to a lot of these vape shops that are popping up all across the country. I'm also doing some investigative work still on the J6 saga. There's going to be hopefully a positive turn in my suing the Veterans Affairs Office for them pulling benefits from J6ers. I'm very close to victory. And so if you subscribe for free, again, independentnewsroom.com, you'll get all of that first.
That is so good.
Independentnewsroom.com. One thing I noticed coming out of the Easter weekend, I kept there's a lot of clips of Trump leading into Easter. Sometimes people give him a hard time about his faith. And I think what's been a beautiful thing, the tough thing with Christianity, it's really tough to walk this through. You've seen what Russell, what's his face in the UK, Russell Brand, walking this through. It's a brutal thing because Christians tend to judge you on, like, they want you to be this perfect fish that's filleted on the table, ready to go and already clean, not like a fish getting in the boat. And when there's so many people that are coming to faith, that they're figuring it out, as we go. One thing I like about President Trump is he's very clear and transparent, in his process. So he had a lot of things, leading into that, you can tell, but like his intention and heart is seems to be, pointed in the right direction. And I kept thinking about, juxtaposed against the Easters we saw with Biden and the auto pen administration, with, Easter was called the day of transgender visibility day. And I remember they had, on the White House lawn, they had men that had been sexually or physically transformed into women, lifting their tops up. And it was such it seemed like clown town. And somebody did a video this weekend where they kind of put Biden being led around by the bunny and kind of showing him where to go on the White House lawn. And then you got, Trump and Melania walking around, and nobody has to show President Trump where to go or protect him from talking to the people. So they realize that he can't put a sentence together. It's such a refreshing change, regardless of people I wish this was this way or wish this was that way. We actually have a leader in the White House that is making strong decisions and making things happen, and doesn't have to be led around by a Secret Service guy in a bunny costume.
Yeah, it's kind of like night and day this time around. It's interesting to sit back and watch. I remember the person who was in that bunny suit was what we thought was like an aide of his. So it was somebody who wanted to make sure that they were yanking him away because he was getting too, cuckoo. Yeah. And so they tried their very best to do just that. I think there was one year too that he was sniffing children, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
He obviously did a lot of that.
Strange.
Yeah, very, very odd. But something that we sadly had to kind of adjust to. That was the president of the United States at the time. And so as we sit back and watch the comparison, it's quite, it's enlightening to see. And David, in the root of all of this, when you kind of started off the conversation on this angle, you mentioned like a lot of people are starting to turn to Christ. I think it's so fascinating because it's something that we're all kind of going through. As many of you guys know personally, I was not attending church when I first met you guys 3 years ago. I think it was maybe 4 years ago I first met you guys, but I have actively been attending church every Sunday and trying my best to be as involved as possible. And it's not just me. There's a whole group of young kids doing just that. I was watching yesterday on social media, and if anyone at home right now needs some type of like faith that this country will be restored, there's massive amount of young people who are now going to church. And I think like in the thousands were baptized yesterday in the Catholic Church alone. So there seems to be this new feel for a lot of people who are like just down on a lot of things and looking to turn to something that has been consistent throughout all of these years. And the consistency is obviously the word. And I think so many people are now turning to just that.
What do you think has done that? Because you're exactly right. We're seeing it on college campuses. We're seeing all these baptisms over these last few years. We're seeing even, downloads of apps and Christian music and Bible sales and all of that increasing. What do you think has happened? Why do you think there's a real hunger for the Word of God, for knowing God as a personal Lord and Savior? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are down. I mean, social media has become such brain rot. If you're on Instagram, and I'm in my 30s, early 30s, and I go through my social media feed on Instagram, and it's not nonsense about like women getting facelifts and just having these just ridiculous standards. And it's just also negative, and it has people so down. So I think a lot of people are just looking for a way to get out of that, and to kind of seek some type of guidance through all of this. And so I think that's why so many people are now turning to religion, specifically Christianity. I also covered a story in the UK. Although obviously the UK is being taken over by Muslims, there has been a surge in Bible sales as well. So I think a lot of people are seeing what's going on there. And, I attended a couple of churches in Texas, and not many of them wanted to talk about what's happening in Texas, which is obviously the Islamic takeover in certain areas. Like DFW is where I am. And so that was a main issue of mine. But now pastors are starting to come out and talk about it. They're starting to be really focused on it. Ken Paxton actually has a son-in-law who's a pastor down in I think it's the San Antonio area, if I'm not mistaken. And he actually now goes and he speaks about the dangers of Islam and talks about Muhammad. And that's something that wasn't done before. And this is a young man in his 20s who's trying to lead the church and trying to lead people to realize what's going on right now. So I think a lot of people are starting to wake up and starting to see a lot of negativity. But then also when you compare it to, like, I didn't grow up reading the Bible. So for me, it's completely different. You start reading, you start realizing, wait a minute, hold on. There's a whole set of rules that have been laid out for us that if I would have read this, if I would have followed this, life would have been a little bit easier for me. And I think a lot of people realize that and they're starting to turn to it.
That's really exciting.
I think a lot of the branding that had been associated with Christianity for a long time was from a position of, judgment. And it was this idea of like God was there to sort of keep you from having fun and this humanist movement in our country towards, don't let the patriarchy get in your way. Anybody that controls you get in your way. It's like rejecting everything, that was a control. And in reality, Christ came to give freedom. And freedom does come from an adherence, to a belief system that goes back before whoever your pastor is, goes back before your parents, your grandparents. It goes back. When you even look at the 10 Commandments, these things are there from a loving father. Like, our children are grown now, they're your age, but we have grandchildren. And like, I don't want my 2-year-old grandson playing with knives. It's like, why are you trying to control him, keep him from knives? It's because they cut him. It's because those things hurt him. When you look at the 10 Commandments, it's like, okay, for people living in communities, well, if you steal, people are probably going to not do business with you. They might kill you. If you sleep with your neighbor's wife or something, he's probably going to kill you. Like, breaking God's laws tend to lead towards death. They toward breaking relationship, not thriving. These are designed not to restrict us and not have fun. It's so you can have a thriving life, so you can have thriving, relationships. I think people are kind of seeing that. Like, I don't know that this path towards I can have whatever I want. Nobody can tell me what to do. I can, I don't know that that's led people towards a joyful life. They're comparing themselves to others on Instagram, and they're trying to get it all from, these other means. Real freedom does come from realizing there is a God, and you know what? He set these things in motion for my protection, not for my restriction from fun, so that I can have a fun life. I can truly have life. I think more people are leading towards like, maybe there's something to that. The fruit on people's lives, they're looking at 80-year-olds and they're like, this guy, nobody likes him. His kids don't like him. He lived for himself. A lot of that baby boomer generation was sort of hey, it's all about me. Greed is good. And I think they're seeing these empty, hollow shells of a generation that they're like, hey, I actually want some truth in my life.
Yeah, it's crazy. So obviously, I've been living around in a bunch of cities over these last few, let's just say, year and a half, and so I've been bouncing around to all these cities. And obviously, I try to make it my way to church every Sunday if I can, and I've been pretty consistent at that. So all these new churches that I'm popping into, you hear the pastors are talking about how they are not being judgy. They are also saying, if it's your first time here, we want to welcome you, of course. Yesterday, when I was in service too, they asked you to fill out a card and just kind of like A, B, C, D. Where do you find yourself? Are you someone who is a firm believer? If you're someone who's trying to find Christ, or you're somebody who's just kind of exploring, or you're someone who's never going to believe at all? And so that's kind of what they wanted, but they wanted you to give it to them on their way out so that they could contact you in case you're somebody who is looking for guidance. And I think that's what I'm noticing consistently, because in Austin too, I was at a church and it just felt like it was for experts, Christian experts, rather than people who maybe for the first time might be stumbling upon a church and trying to figure out and seek which way they're going in all of this. But then I went back into Dallas, and Dallas is a little bit more welcoming. So I am a little optimistic that things are going to start changing. The tones are going to start changing a bit. And also to the negativity, right? Because there's, left likes to use the word Christian nationalist, and I didn't even understand what that means, but I actually don't even understand why anyone would be ashamed of that at this point. It's something that you should be proud of when you want your country to be a Christian nation, because I think that's one of the things that has made this country so successful since its founding. So when we go through all the details, we've got to walk through all of this. There has been this, they've demonized Christians, and I think people are starting to wake up and realize it's not so bad. Even President Trump, when he talks about those who are members of his cabinet, those who are believers, he talks about how kind they are. And he said it repeatedly, that they're very kind people. And although, I don't know how far he's gone into all of this, I think that in the last, I'd say probably a year and a half, he's done some deep digging into all of it. And I think he's getting better at being able to appreciate Christianity a bit and speak out on that and become a defender of Christianity. Although I won't say he's perfect, I will say that he's at least trying. We saw the moves he's trying to make in Nigeria to save the Christians that are being slaughtered by the jihadists over there. That effort is greatly appreciated, obviously, but it needs to continue on, and it needs to be something of substance. But it's not just that. We also need to support in Syria as well, because sadly, he's welcomed in a al-Qaeda terrorist into the White House who is pretending to be the president of Syria. And this individual is responsible for the slaughter of Christians. We know the Christians are currently being attacked in Syria, and it's been since the regime change in Syria. They have been attacked over the weekend. Sarah Adams, who is formerly with the CIA, I don't know if that's a thing to be formerly with the CIA, but she's worked for the CIA prior, has come out, and she's the only one who I could find the information from. I mean, she's putting out all this information about how Christians in Syria are being slaughtered right now. And so we need an administration. I think it's great. Pete Hegseth over at the Pentagon, I cover the Pentagon now, credentialed over there, thankfully, has been great. Yeah, he's been great at talking about these issues and making it one of his cores, I guess I could say, when he's making his decisions. Is obviously he's obviously a well-rooted Christian. He's been preaching for years now and talking about the gospel for years now. But I think it's really interesting to see now how he's trying to lead the way in Nigeria to save Christian Nigerians from the jihadists. But I would like to see more efforts being placed in Syria right now, because we continue to see the president bring in that Syrian president into the White House. And it made my stomach turn, because we all know that he's allowing ISIS to go out there and kill these innocent people.
It's a really great point. One of the things we absolutely love doing is going through your X feeds, kind of reading through them, and we're going to be doing that today. We'd love to get your feedback on some of this and kind of your thoughts as you were putting out these tweets. One of the things I thought of as you were talking is May 17th, I believe, is the day that President Trump is rededicating the United States as one nation under God, which is huge that President Trump is doing that. And then you were talking about, just different people that are working around him. Marco Rubio, I don't know if you guys had an opportunity to see his social media yesterday, but he put out a video, and it was actually his voice speaking, talking about Jesus being raised from the dead.
Clear presentation of the gospel.
A clear presentation of the gospel. It was absolutely beautiful. And so it's pretty cool just to see the people that are surrounding President Trump and kind of what's happening. But let's start with actually on your X, you had President Trump says he fully endorses Steve Hilton for California governor. Can you talk about that? Because obviously Newsom, what we're seeing in California, and then all of, we thought that Minnesota was bad with corruption, then to see all of the corruption in California. Talk about that, and what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, I would love to have a Republican leading California. Unfortunately, though, I don't think California has hit its lowest lows, and so I think that they're probably going to be leaning more red. I mean, sorry, no, more blue, still, which is really obviously upsetting. But Gavin Newsom is a horrible human being, and there's a report too that he's spending millions of taxpayer dollars now to kind of reinvent his image. I mean, he sees himself as a serious contender for 2028, which I think is so fascinating because he was the one who decided to clear the streets in California so that the CCP leader could drive down the streets and pretend like there was this great safe area. I believe it was San Diego, if I'm not mistaken, or San Francisco, if
San
I'm not
Francisco.
mistaken. Is where,
Yep.
yeah, it was so bad. It was so bad. This is a guy who's absolutely destroyed California. He's made it unbearable for anyone to live there, and it's a beautiful, beautiful state, but it's destroyed. I mean, homelessness has skyrocketed. They've are someone who pretends Democrats pretend to pour millions of dollars into the homeless crisis, and we all know, and we also have more evidence of that, 'cause what's going on in New York, that for many, many years now, it has been just I would say like it's just a funneling scheme where they're just giving all this money away to the politicians and they're just pretending to help homeless people. New York, for an example, New York City apparently claimed on paper that they spent $80,000 per homeless person last year, fiscal year. But obviously, that's not the case. If you're spending $80,000 per homeless person, wouldn't you just give them the money and tell them to go find housing somewhere and tell them to get off the streets?
Yeah.
Instead, it's a whole money laundering scheme. We know this also because there was a report again over the weekend that somebody who was very close to Kathy Hochul, a running mate of hers, is someone who's also being tipped off and is being investigated by the FBI for possible pay-to-play schemes as well. So this is what's happening all across the country. It's obviously very heavy in blue states because blue states just want to give welfare programs out, just so many. And it's obviously upsetting, but yeah, I mean, this is the program here. I mean, I remember, and me and Mel K were actually talking about this years ago when I first started doing news. I was in New York City, and I started covering how over $1 billion went missing. It just went missing, and it was going towards the homeless programs in New York City to stop homelessness and prevent homelessness. And it was Bill de Blasio shuffling it over to his wife. His wife then was supposed to give that money out to this NGOs, I guess, and the groups that are supposed to help them. And then she was brought in front of the city council. She couldn't account for $700 million. That's never been accounted for. That's never been called into question by any law enforcement agency at all. But it's happening everywhere. Nick Shirley's doing a great job in California digging into all of this. Also, I was talking to James O'Keefe. He's very optimistic because he's been investigating the election fraud angle to all of this, how they are literally paying people to, on Skid Row, which is obviously a very well-known homeless area where homeless drug users, sadly, are living on the streets. He's going around with Savannah Hernandez and other reporters just watching as it's happening in the open. I mean, they're literally paying homeless people to fill out voter registration forms, and then they're giving them bogus addresses. And then they're all like, oh, we're not doing that, but we have it on tape, sir. We see you giving $5 to this homeless person so they could go buy drugs, or a cigarette to this person so they could buy drugs. We know what you're doing. So there's a lot of issues with these states. And, I know that the president just launched his division over at the DOJ, which is supposed to investigate the fraud. And I know JD Vance is now the fraud czar, I believe was the official title that they've given him to go into all of this. But
The fact that we have to have a fraud czar.
I know.
I mean, yeah, you
Cut
have a
off the
border czar
welfare
because you got
programs.
millions coming across the border. We need a fraud czar because there's billions, in that going on. And that'll be a lot of headwind for Gavin to try to overcome because we're still, barely into 26 now. So for him to run in 28 with this amount of fraud coming out, I think that's a fire that's just going to continue. I mean, the irony is not, lost on my analogy there, but it'll be a fire that he will not be able to separate himself from.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way he can. It's so bad. It's so deep, the fraud, and it's so bad when you go through all of the independent journalists who are on the ground and trying to focus in on it. It's really, really bad. Americans are tired of paying taxes. I mean, what's the purpose of paying taxes? It's not going to us. It's going to other foreign countries. And when it is going to us, it's being shuffled over to fraudsters. And then the rest of us are just expected to just shut up and just keep dishing out our own hard-earned money to the government. Enough is enough. I understand that the president has just launched this fraud division over the DOJ, but it never goes far enough. These people need to be held accountable. Honestly, anyone who's ripping off the system and taking advantage of taxpayers, life in prison. If they are immigrants and they were naturalized citizens, completely strip them of their immigration status and then ship them off to their third world countries that they've come from. It's so frustrating to sit back and watch because so many people are working 2 jobs, 3 jobs, just trying to get by in life. And then you have all these people who are cons who are just enjoying the system and just racking in the fraud.
I totally agree, 100%. Definitely something has got to be done. We're really praying that something is done, that justice does
Yeah.
come, for it. With Pam Bondi, being gone, what do you think? How do you think that'll affect things? Do you think that actually things will move forward? Do you think that somehow things were stopped up with her? What's your thought on that whole situation?
Yeah, I've seen the reports about Pam Bondi being dismissed from her role, and I think people are tap dancing around it. And I think there was a couple of things that said that she was a leaker, and that's the reason why the president got rid of her. She was absolutely useless, and we saw the president speak out about it on Truth Social and voice his frustrations, which kind of looked like a mistake that he posted it publicly. It might have just been like a text message that might have been privately being sent. Who knows? But that made its way that he was frustrated that these people weren't being prosecuted. She's been going for like the lowest hanging fruit when it comes to charging people like James Comey, like Tish James. These aren't the deep state operatives that I want locked up. The Republicans who have been charged, like what's his name, Bolton as well. These people have all been John Bolton. They've all been wrapped up in charges. Obviously, some of them not sticking due to judges, but they've all been wrapped up in charges. These are the lowest hanging fruit. These are the people who I would say, although I believe that they should be held accountable, these are the people that I don't think are the ones who have tried to destroy our democracy to the extent that has happened in the past. And unfortunately, I don't think Pam Bondi really had an appetite for any of this. Mel K did a great job at walking and warning the rest of us about all of this too, saying, hey, listen, Pam Bondi, when she was over in Florida, was very much into protecting Epstein. It was very much into protecting the fraud that was put on the stand during the Trayvon Martin case. So there was a lot of really questionable things. And I sat back and watched her confirmation hearing, and not a single person really threw a dagger at this woman. They didn't try going after her character. They let her slide through. And I think that's the reason. I think she was somebody who was meant to slow everything down. It takes years to be able to file charges and to send these people to criminal trials. So now we're working against the clock. Now that we have Todd Blanche, who has now taken on the acting AG role, I'm not very confident in Todd Blanche. Todd Blanche has actively worked against our wishes, the American people's wishes. Alex Jones was completely bankrupt. And whatever you think about Alex Jones and the outrageous things you think he might be saying, the reality of it is he still has a First Amendment right to say what he wants to say. And he's also a member of the media. So there was no reason why the judge was able to wipe him clean of all of his finances and completely take InfoWars and send it away. But when you start digging through everything, you realize this was actually a well-coordinated effort between an FBI employee and the DOJ. And I know this for a fact because we've seen the information that was put out for Arctic Frost. They specifically were denied Alex Jones's phone records. A judge slapped that down when Jack Smith tried reaching for it. And then magically we see what appears to be an email being sent. And the subject line says Alex Jones's cell phone records being sent by a lawyer who sued him in civil court being handed over to the DOJ. So it's very obvious that this is all a well-coordinated effort, in my opinion. And the reality of it is when it fell and Ed Martin wanted to investigate, because Ed Martin, too, understood there was a lot here, a lot happening here. Todd Blanche, according to my sources, was the one to step in and shut down Ed Martin's investigation and then completely got rid of the weaponization division. So if you want to reform DOJ, Todd Blanche can't be anywhere near that.
Oh, that's huge.
Are there good options? Is there somebody you're cheering for? Like, if they could get Steve Johnson over here, he would do it. Is there a guy? Is there a gal? Is there somebody that like, hey, this person will come in and be a wrecking ball?
Yeah, I don't think they're confirmable though, and it's not because they're bad people. It's because they've intentionally know that the deep state knows that these are people that would actually do the job and they would actually follow the Constitution to its exact wording, and they don't want them there. So they've done a great job slandering them. I would go with Jeff Clark. Jeff Clark's been an absolute patriot. He's still to this day being attacked. He didn't turn his back on the president. He was willing to go out there and investigate the election fraud tips that were being sent over to the FBI. I know that's for a fact. I've spoken to the sources in the FBI who did receive 2020 election fraud tips, and then they were shut down by Bill Barr. Jeff Clark would be a great patriot for that, but they're still going after him, trying to disbar him in D.C. because, well, they didn't like the fact that he was bold enough to go out there and say, hold on a second, something's not right here. So he's still under attack. So he would make a great DOJ leader, whether it's the deputy AG or the AG itself, but he's not going to make it past the confirmation process. And that's the part that's really frustrating there. Also, Ed Martin. Ed Martin is somebody who has been in this as well for quite some time. Ed has been doing his very best at trying to bring truth out there with the weaponization division. Unfortunately, that was dissolved. And I think that was because he was being too successful. He was going out there and going after some key people, and Todd Blanche was the one from my sources told me to shut that down. So Ed Martin would make a great person to lead this effort over the DJ. If you want to earn back the trust of the people, I mean, you've got to get Jeff Clark, you got to get John Eastman, you got to get Rudy Giuliani, you got to get these people who have experience in there because they were the victims of all of this. But most importantly, they understand where all the crimes lie. You know, I sat here at the same studio with Giuliani sitting to my right, and we had a whole discussion about what's been going on and what needs to be done by the DOJ. Rudy Giuliani has a mapped out plan. If they bring him into the DOJ, whether it's obviously, I don't think he's going to be running because he's obviously retired as well. I don't think he's running the DOJ, but as somebody who's there as a senior advisor telling you where to go, I think that's key. You need these people out there who have been through the battlegrounds and have been able to still stand by the president's side. It's the only way we fix this country is if we get people in there who are good people who know what they're doing.
That's really good. Okay, let's move on to another tweet here. President Trump details rescue efforts in Iran for Colonel saved last night. This is pretty cool. We actually, so just for you guys to look at timeline-wise, the crash actually happened on Good Friday, and he was rescued on Easter. So we were like, now that's pretty cool because obviously you see Jesus, died. He rose from the dead on Resurrection Sunday, Easter. But looking at that, this was huge. We watched a video on it, even them talking about the Sears and all of that moving up, on Easter, how he was actually saved. So we had the pilot and then we had the other guy. So talk a little bit about that and what happened over the weekend.
Yeah, so obviously it was devastating to hear that their plane went down. They were able to rescue one of the individuals who was on board. The other one was lost, but they were trying to find him. I know the CIA, I'm no fan of the CIA, but the CIA was actively looking to find out where his location was on the ground. And it was quite interesting to sit back and watch because, again, if the Iranian regime got a hold of this man, it wouldn't have been good for him. And I know the president spoke openly about how they were trying their best to beat out the Iranians to find him. And I think it took roughly, they lost him for about 8 hours and then were able to kind of pin him down and figure it out. So however you feel about the efforts that are being led right now in Iran, we could sit back and say, this is what the United States military is supposed to be about. You don't leave any man behind. Obviously, it's a rescue mission, which was high risk, going in there and trying to extract him from Iran and obviously put more U.S. service members at risk. But man, oh man, we need to celebrate this win, regardless of how you feel. Again, I'm no supporter of what's been done in Iran, but the fact that we were able to be committed to that line that you hear all the time, no man gets left behind. The president and Pete Hegseth made sure that was the case, and it was just really awesome to see that he's alive. And I can't wait to hear his story. I'm sure he's going to, once he settles down and he's, gets a moment to kind of breathe, he'll probably go out there and start talking about what happened to him there, because I think it's a powerful, powerful story. And I want to hear what happened in those few hours that he was on the ground, because I can only imagine what he was feeling at that time. It was probably horrible.
Well, everybody immediately references this as like it's like a movie.
It is like a movie.
It's like turnkey. All they got to do is just document it and film it and get Mark Wahlberg to play the guy, and it's like boom, you're ready to go.
I think he climbed like 7,000 feet or something, and it was like during night, and he was injured, and all these. I mean, that is going to be quite a movie. I really do hope they do make it.
This kind of it seems to kind of tie in almost like the U.S. hockey team winning. It's this idea of our military superiority has been so clear in this, and we're coming out of something that was, if everybody can kind of just think back, remember how you felt when we, pulled out of Afghanistan and they took on billions of dollars of our equipment. They had a parade, with all of our equipment and gear. It was so just demoralizing, as Americans, to be led with such incompetence. And then to see this, where there's a guy left behind, and it's like, hey, we're willing to move in there, and then we're not leaving a plane behind they can use. It's like, we're going to blow it up. I think most Americans are pretty cool with that. We'd rather see people over property, honored, and to see go in and get our guys out. We've had a lot of black eyes in our country with leaving people behind, not taking people first, incompetence costing lives. In the Biden administration, they left these dogs in the kennels when they went out. It's it was just so sad. Everything about the Afghan withdrawal. And then to see, this weekend, so surgical, and the amount of devastation that they've brought on strategically taking out sites in Iran and, taking out Maduro and his jammies, in the middle of the night, without a loss, without even, anything. It's like, it really shows where we are as a military and where we can be when competence is elevated above transgender ideology and how woke is our military and men cross-dressing as women and as generals and everything that was done during the Biden administration. Again, it's as stark as the Easter Bunny, walking around on the grass in the two administrations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, I've obviously covered the Pentagon. I've been there and I've, met with Pete Hegseth. I met with all the great people who are backing him. And that's been the tone. The tone is that they got to get back to making this the strongest, the best military in the world, the most, I forgot the term that he uses, the most deadly, I think he says, military, but he also doesn't want to use it unless they have to. And so I think that they've done a great job at just that, based on the morale that was happening before when they were allowing all these mentally ill individuals kind of get these high up positions within the military. A lot of people internally were at their lowest lows. I mean, the Biden administration did everything possible to just completely degrade our military, and they did a great job at that. I mean, that was the goal, and they did it. They executed it perfectly. It was unfortunate. It was sad to see. It was depressing to watch. But like you just said, I mean, now we're sitting here, we're watching our military be rebuilt, and we're watching it be tested. And again, I mean, I'm someone who strongly believes that we should not be involved in any foreign wars, and I'm not somebody who's an advocate for what's going on right now in Iran. I think we should, that should never happen. It was bad timing, of course. That's my personal perspective on this. But when you sit back and you're just watching from I guess the standpoint of like strategy here, military strategy, and you're seeing what's happening on the ground, it is quite impressive. I mean, the fact that they were able to wipe out the Ayatollah, if you're just watching again from taking away your opinion, you're just watching it from the actual fact based on all of this, it was quite impressive and how quickly they were able to do that and take out all these people. And by the way, I don't understand why they keep doing this. I know I made a joke, I made light of it on social media, but there was reports too that we wiped out 50 top Iranian regime officials who apparently were in a meeting together in the middle of the night. They keep doing this, guys. I don't understand. Why do they keep doing this? Why do they keep having these in-person meetings where they get together and they expect the United States government not to just nuke them it's the best thing that you could do. I mean, these people are evil. They're demonic, obviously. So it's weird that they have not learned their lesson yet, and they continue to have these massive gatherings. Again, I think the last number was like 50 of them were killed just a week ago during another gathering, another meeting. And it's like, do you guys not have Zoom? Like, how do you not use something else? It doesn't make any sense to me.
I think arrogance. I really do think like they're like, oh, that's impossible. They can't get us again.
Yeah. Well, they don't fear death. I mean, that's just what they're
You're right. But can you imagine like how far down the ranks they are now? Now you're like the second assistant to the Department of Agriculture or something, is like now the top guy. It's like, okay, you're now the new one. Like, oh, I'm good.
Yeah. Like I don't want that title. It's like you're just literally putting a target on someone's back. And Charlie Kirk said it best 2 years ago when he was speaking about the issue. He warned that if we did attack Iran, and he was very much against it, that you would see the Iranian government try to bring in everyone else, the regime try to bring in everyone else. And that's exactly what happened within the first couple of hours of these attacks taking place. They started bombing all these Middle Eastern neighbors of theirs, trying to bring them in on this war, because now they're like, let's start a World War III. Yeah. So it's been interesting seeing how this has all been playing out, especially the countries who I still to this day don't think are allies of ours, but of course the president seems to think differently. Everything's kind of shifted over these last few months, or the last few weeks, I should say. So there's that. I also am a little concerned though with the $200 billion asking price for this war. That doesn't sound like something that's going to last a couple of weeks. It sounds like something that might be long term.
That is a good thing. I want to actually bring you to President Trump's truth that he put out yesterday. So if you are watching, there is definitely adult language in this truth that he put out. And it actually went out yesterday at 8:03 a.m. But it was talking about Tuesday will be power plant day, the bridge day, all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Open the effing straight, you crazy bees, or you'll be living in hell. So you look at that and you're like, okay, this is really, really, I mean, he's not leaving anything to the imagination. What is your thought on this?
Probably not the best strategy. I mean, it seems like to me he's a little frantic these days when it comes to obviously the Strait of Hormuz. I think that it doesn't seem like there's a plan. I remember, I quoted a German official, I'm running a blank on their name, who said, it sounds like to us that he didn't have a plan in place for these attacks and what was going to happen to obviously that area specifically. And so now he's asking other countries to come in and kind of save him in that. So I understand, that frustration. But then he also had that really, I think inappropriate line. What was it? He praised Allah. Was in one of the in that same post.
Praise be to Allah. Yep.
There's some good takes on that. Dinesh D'Souza and others have put out. They're kind of comparing it to Elijah, when they're, there's a story in the Bible where they're, the gods of Baal are trying to burn up these sacrifices, and Elijah's like taunting them, with that. I mean, I think it's.
And then God comes up and licks it all up. Man, he sends his fire, licks it up.
That was, Dinesh's take, and I kind of took it similar. I think it was very like, after, the profanity laced like threat, it seemed like, like basically it's like saying, let your God be with you, because no one else is.
We'll see actually whose God actually is real.
To me, that's how I took it. I don't think it was saying he's praising Allah. He's like, okay, let your God be with you then, because no one else will.
Yeah, that's a really hard negotiation standpoint, right? Like you crap on their religion completely, which I don't deem it as a religion, but for them, they deem it as a religion. They're very passionate about this. In case you all at home don't know this, they're very passionate about this, and they're Mohammed. So I don't know if it's the best stance to take up when you're trying to end a war, and he claims that he's trying to negotiate a deal with them. Because if I'm the Iranians at this point, you've already lost everything. The regime is completely wiped out, but there still are some standing survivors, and obviously they know they have some strength over there too with the Strait of Hormuz. So it doesn't scream welcome. Let's have a negotiation to me. Probably the best way to head up.
See the taunting. I hadn't heard that about Dinesh, David, but you could definitely see that because with, when obviously the prophet was calling down the fire and they put water everywhere, everything that would be like, this could never happen, and God comes and sucks up the water and, burns the sacrifice and all of that. And all of these, Baal false prophets are like, they couldn't do anything. It'll be really interesting to see what happens. To me,
fighting the Iranians is like Monty Python fighting the Black Knight, or whatever. He's like, cuts off his arm. It's a flesh wound, and kind of just keeps going like
cuts off his legs.
Cuts off his legs. I'll come back. I'll bite your ankles. It's like, dude, you're done. And, and as early as this morning, they're rejecting the negotiations for a ceasefire. So I think he's just making it very clear what he's going to do. So when it's done, it'll be like, dude, I told you this was the next step. And at some point here, I think the people that are in the majority in Iran that do not want to be underneath of this regime's tyranny, will rise up and probably are even more than is being reported.
Yeah, I saw the last report the president gave Fox News. I think that he gave the Kurds weapons to distribute, and so that they are distributing firearms throughout the region. So we'll see how that all goes. I don't know. It's never gone well for us when our federal government starts handing out firearms to countries in the Middle East. I don't think we have a good record of that. But
not in my lifetime.
No.
All of this just makes me so nervous. Once I saw the protests going on in Iran, and then I saw what was happening in Venezuela, I knew our CIA has been very, very busy over there stirring the pot a bit. And so I kind of figured something was cooking up. And so here we are. We'll see how it all ends up. I hope it ends soon, though, because I don't want to see any other Americans lose their lives. And I'd rather see the Iranians take back their government all by themselves.
There's been an invasion of our own country. Now, you can never invade America, based look at our military strength by storming the beaches and doing that. I don't think anybody would make it 5 seconds just coming against our civilians, let alone our military. But our policies and goodness can be used against us. We have, 9% of U.S. births last year were 350,000 births. 9% of our total births in America were by non-Americans that now will get Social Security and they have American citizenship. We've been invaded that way. We have a B-roll clip, I think, somewhere somebody posted what it looks like in the Mall of America. Now, we used to take our kids to the Mall of America, it's the biggest mall in the world. In Minneapolis, Minnesota, it now looks like Somalia. It's just full of Somalians in the Mall of America. You did an interview with Savannah Hernandez recently about this entire topic. Can you kind of talk about that?
By the way, you look great in that interview. You look so good. What a cool outfit.
Look like a ninja.
Thanks, girl. I appreciate it. No, it's my Lululemon attire. I wear it quite often. There's a bunch of great Lululemon gear that makes you feel like a ninja. So that's not a plug for our paid promotion. Yeah. No, it's great. I love it. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. So Savannah Hernandez was down in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and she was investigating both the Islamic and obviously the Indians who have come and kind of consumed the area over these last few years. And I last year I was just like, I want to pick up and move somewhere else. I was living in Florida for 6 6 years. And
Yep.
I decided to go to Dallas because when I graduated college, I really wanted to move to Dallas, but there wasn't a paid opportunity for me to do it. So I figured now is a great time. I work for myself. I could go do it. I didn't realize, and I visited, but I didn't realize how bad it's gotten. I mean, they have been officially taken over is what it feels like. And they're not very welcoming. And I warned Savannah of that because Savannah was like, oh, girl, I'm going to just go around and have an open mind. And I said, okay, have fun. But, just keep in the back of your mind, whether they're Indian or whether they are Muslim, they're not going to be very happy to see you there. Now, they have hired a PR group to represent them, but it's been very famous. It's called EPIC is kind of the abbreviation for it. It's the East Plano Islamic Center. They've since changed their name to the Meadow because it receives so much negative coverage in the media. So they think, like, let me just take out the Islam part so nobody knows what we really are here. They've developed and they've purchased lands, and I have been infuriated about this for a while now because it's not just there. It's happening all across. And if you live in a red state, don't think you're immune to it because they're moving to red states because we have low regulations and they like the fact that we are trying to trans our kids and they agree with that. So they're flooding into our schools, into our areas, and they're trying to make us change our way of life to best suit them. And that's not what we should be doing. But long story short, her and I kind of walked around and we spoke about everything. And she had just left one of the mosques in East Plano and had told me, I met with the president of EPIC and he told me that they're very welcoming and they let me into the room with the men praying and they let me into the room with the women praying. And I said, well, okay, well, Savannah, that's all for show. They have a PR company that's now trying to rebrand them, but you as a female are not allowed to be anywhere near the men. And she was telling me, it's funny, my male producer, when he was with me, they were fine with it. But when he wasn't there, they were very uncomfortable with me. And I think she said she was wearing shorts and a shirt. And so they didn't like that either. But they were nice to her. And so she thought, they seemed very welcoming and maybe might be overblown kind of thing. And I said, no, their Quran says that they're allowed to lie to you. Their Quran has over 100 verses in it. And it's quite simple to pull up over 100 verses saying that they could go after and kill those who are non-believers and that they could lie to us because we are non-believers. They are on a mission to conquer, and they're doing just that in the DFW area. And sadly, most of the Texas politicians are now jumping on board, but it took quite some time. We now see people like Ken Paxton's been the first one. He didn't wait for the polling number to come out. He jumped on this pretty quickly. Greg Abbott up for re-election, so he's got to pretend like he cares. He's now pretending to be a fighter and trying to push back, but it's not the case. It has been conquered. There's a video. And Colton, you probably find on my Twitter page, it's probably in the highlights portion because this was last July. I had an issue myself where a man who I have now found out was born in Egypt. He's an American possibly now. We're not 100% certain, but he was born in Egypt and then he came to this country. He was stalking me. He was following behind me. And then he tried entering, well, he not trying, he did. He entered my property and he came into my apartment complex and started following me up the stairs and he was trying to get into my home. And thankfully I was carrying that day, so he didn't make it up the stairs too far along. But the reality of it, this is an Egyptian man who does not belong in this country. He, according to my sources, came here claiming to be Coptic Christian, so he's not Muslim, but he came here claiming to be Coptic Christian, which is likely the reason why he was able to get asylum and was able to get into this country. And again, it's not 100% confirmed because DHS won't tell me much. They're trying to hide the information from me too. It took me a while to get to this point because I had to threaten to sue the police department. Nobody wanted to show me the footage. The police didn't want to enter it in as evidence. The Plano Police Department is very heavily involved in the mosque throughout Plano. The police chief in Plano, Texas, Ed Drain, is somebody who has been at these mosques, speaking at these mosques. He's been very willing to talk to these people. When I forced the police department to file a police complaint, I forced them because I said in my description, I made sure to get it on the record that this man who was following me looked to be Middle Eastern. They put it in writing. But then the police officer who came there didn't want to look at the footage because obviously you don't want to piss off the Middle Easterns. Right. And again, I didn't know what his religious background was, but I knew he was not from this country because he had an accent as well. And so it took me a couple of weeks, a couple of legal threats. This is the man you see following right behind me. He's not saying, hey, Brianna, or hey, can you stop for a second? He sees me going into the building and he wants to catch the door behind me. It didn't end well for him, though. He got a 9mm Glock put in his face, and so off he ran. But he's now been criminally charged, but it wasn't easy for me to get this. I had to sit here and fight to get them to even show me the footage, to get them to even, I threatened to sue the Plano Police Department because they wouldn't give it to me. They didn't even enter it in as evidence. They thought this was all, and I have a letter from the FBI saying I get active death threats. So the point point of this whole story is right now there's a massive issue in this country where we have, especially in DFW area, we have police departments that do not want to go after these Muslims or potential Middle Eastern individuals because they fear possibly being labeled or being attacked for doing just that. They only did it because I forced them to do it. They only charged him because I forced them to charge him. And we know this, Judicial Watch actually filed a FOIA request where internally at the police department, they're talking about the millions of views that my video got and I'm a former Fox reporter, and they just keep going back and forth. That's all I cared for. So my point to all of this is this country needs to wake up and they need to realize this isn't just happening in Texas. If you live in Florida, if you live in Tampa, it's happening there. I covered a story in Alabama, how they're buying up the churches in Alabama. You don't know it at first. They buy under Chinese LLCs or LLCs that kind of look like they're Christian. One LLC that I found did have the name Christ in it. So obviously if you're a church and you are looking to sell off your church to someone else, you're thinking I'm selling this church off to another Christian group. Right. Not the case. They switch it over to a Muslim organization and how quickly they turn it into a mosque. So the rest of the people in this country need to wake up. It's happening throughout the South.
Man, that is such great information.
That's how you invade America right there.
You're exactly right. Okay, Brianna, so if somebody's listening today, again, tell them how can they follow you and how can they get this information on a regular basis?
Perfect. You got to head on over to X. That's where I do all my live tweeting throughout the day. It's at Brianna Morello. And if you want to get exclusive straight to your inbox, again, it's like maybe 2 a month. I don't do too many because I don't want to spam people. You got to head on over independentnewsroom.com, hit that subscribe button, type in your email address. And again, it's free. So I'm very thankful for you for signing up for that.
That's awesome. Brianna, thank you so much for your time. It has been great having you back.
Thank you, guys. It's a pleasure catching up with you. We'll do it again soon.
If you had a time machine and you could go back to, say, 1930 and you had 1 ounce of gold or a $20 bill, both of those would buy you a complete men's suit, brand new, the shirt, the tie, the belt. Either one would buy you the whole thing. If you had a time machine and then you brought both of those resources into today, 1 ounce of gold could still buy you a full suit at pretty much any men's store in America. The $20 bill, why, it probably only gets you a handkerchief or a pair of socks.
How do you get the gold and silver? Well, it's very simple. We have a friend that we've known for over 25 years. In fact, his dad was a mentor of ours, and his name is Dr. Kirk Elliott. And the way that you connect with him is you go to flyovergold.com. It's a website that we set up to make it very simple. All you do is go there, fill out your information, and someone from Dr. Kirk's team will get a hold of you to answer all of your questions. Whatever you have, they can help you out. Or you can simply call 720-605-3900. Again, 720-605-3900 to set up that free consultation. Do it today. You will be so glad that you did.
I'm Linda Bamber Olson, the inventor of the Wave Watch, the world's first frequency therapy watch. It features over 1,100 targeted frequencies. These sounds are acoustical and they move through your body. You don't necessarily have to hear it. So that's why we have so many testimonies for ADD and ADHD, emotions, headaches, joints, and so many more.
All right, Flyover family. My name is Avery Whited. I'm the daughter of David and Stacy. I'm just moving in, so I had to get an order for my pillow and get the things that I needed. So let's look inside. I got some My Pillow towels, kitchen towels. I got some of their Giza sheets. Now, I've never actually been able to use them, but I've heard amazing things from my parents about them. And last but not least, something for Charlie. Hey, dog bed. All right, Charlie, let's go put this in the dryer and fluff it up for you. Come on, buddy. Nice and warm and fluffy. Perfect for my little guy. Come here, Charlie. All right, if you want to get your own products, go to mypillow.com and use promo code Flyover to save up to 66% off.
If you want to do anything worthwhile in life, you've got to be hungry. It's better to be prepared for an opportunity and not have one than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. So every day I was working to develop myself. And that's what you must do.
I promise you one thing. You will never seen any player in the entire country play as hard as I will play the rest of the season.
Get here! Hey, we got 30 minutes for the rest of our life! 30 minutes for the rest of our life!
There were none before me, and there will be none after me. Therefore, that makes me the one and only. Young and single, love to mingle, certified, bona fide, indubitably qualified to bring you satisfaction, a whole lot of action. Look out, baby, I'm your love man. I was hungry. I was hungry. You gotta be hungry.
Everyone is talking about this.
The one thing that's very important part of my portfolio all these years is gold.
Has gold hit all-time highs already this year?
And get a free info kit on gold today.
It's called silver. Gold coin.
And though we are thrilled that everyone is talking about investing in precious metals, a lot of these 1-800 numbers will make you feel like just another transaction. That's why it's crucial to work with a person, not a faceless institution, when it comes to your finances. You deserve to be treated like family, not just another number. Dr. Kirk Elliott, who we've known for over 25 years, he doesn't just sell gold and silver. He offers trust, care, and a personal touch that an impersonal institution could never match. So when it comes to securing your financial future, don't just call a company, call a person. Call Dr. Kirk Elliott at 720-605-3900 or visit flyovergold.com to learn more. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Flyover Conservatives podcast with David and Stacy Whited. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave us a comment below. Lastly, if you enjoyed today's podcast, share with those who came to mind. Be blessed and make it a great day.